Well, guys, it's got hot here in Seville again. How are you? Hope you're well. Thanks for joining me on another clip of Teaching Teenagers English. This one's glorious. I don't think I've mentioned it so far, but if I haven't, I should have done. I think I mentioned it in the book, in Understanding Teenagers. Chapter 12, I think the chapter's called Repetition, Assimilation and Memorization, if I remember rightly. Anyway, it's for free, and I think we like free stuff. What I mean by that is it's a small adjustment to something that you're already going to be doing. I'm all about finding the limits of the classroom, but I think sometimes the limits that we don't have to be looking beyond the activity to expand it, to increase it, to elaborate it, to enrich it, to complicate it. Sometimes you can go to an activity and look inwards, and you can find the essence of the activity and kind of rarefy, simplify, purify, distill it, which is also what I like to do. Go to the simple, to the essence, and this is, I think, an example of that. Let's imagine that we've got a class of teenagers and we want to do something nice. We want to, we're making a playlist, like a Spotify style playlist, maybe even on Spotify for them. So everybody is contributing one or two songs to the playlist. Obviously, as I always say, when the enthusiasm is with your students, you are in control in terms of the language. So if they want to do something, we can get them to say something in English. And what we'll get them to say is why they like the song that they're proposing for the playlist. So that's the sort of scenario. The communication in the lesson would be talking about songs we like. So we're helping our learners say why they like the music that they like. And rather than just, I like the music or I like the singer. I like the beat, I like the intro, I like the accordion bit. The story tells the lyrics tell a beautiful story, etc., etc., etc. So this is the discussion. You can take or leave that scenario bit. I'm just giving you an example of, the backdrop. But it could be a lesson about anything. We've done some speaking. Any speaking we do in a class, we're likely to have our learners asking us how to say certain words or sentences in English. I hope. And as they do, obviously we're going to the board and we're boarding that. So our board is full of lovely words and sentences in English to help our learners say what they want to say. Whether they've been asking us in their first language or their interlanguage, whether we've been reformulating their utterances in English or translanguaging, however we get there, the board is full of lovely language in English that we want them to remember. So, whilst they're doing the penultimate activity or the next activity, we simply go to the board. Let's imagine, by the way, the board looks something like this. That was me, hopefully, dropping a slide in to show you our hypothetical board. And then, as they're doing that activity, and they're not waiting for the teacher, they're doing something else, we sneakily go over to the board and rub out some of the key language and sort of number the items so that they can refer to them from their seated position. You could use a different pen if you're using board pens, if you're using chalk, doesn't matter. And then it's A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, just speaking. See if you can remember all the words that go in the gaps with your partner. Ready, steady, go. And once they've done that, we can go over with them if we want to. Okay, who remembers what goes in here? Who remembers what goes in here? We still don't have to write the word in the gap yet, because if they don't quite remember them, we can repair them with a different partner and ask them to do it again. Or we could give the students the chalk or the board pens. A couple of them can come up as representatives of the rest of the class and fill in the gaps as well. And maybe we could also add some facilitative tension and tell them that we're going to time them and that everybody sitting down can also help them. So it's a class effort, and we'll see how quickly they can do it and if they can beat the record that they set last time for the previous board, for example. I mean, they're all little variations. My point is, if you've got a board full of lovely language, then your next activity, the memorisation activity, is for free. And if I'm watching an observed class, or well, an observed class because I'm watching, it's kind of circular, that, isn't it? Then, you know, sometimes I'll see a teacher put all this beautiful language on the board, and then when they need the board for something else, they wipe it all away and it's gone and they've done nothing with it, which I always think is a massive shame. So if you do that sort of instant gap fill, your students' retention of the words and sentences that have emerged in the lesson, the emergent language there, will rise exponentially. And if you whip out your camera and take a photo of the instant gap fill, then you can project it up next time if you have a projector. Or you can just bring it up on your camera and ask them to see if they remember the words. Or you can turn it into communicative conversation questions or revision sheets, any number of things. But what you're doing is you're putting that emergent language on the same level as the language in your syllabus or in your course book. And remember, that language on the board is the language that your students have asked for. It's the language they've been trying to say. That is the language that they need, for sure, because they wanted to say it. So placing it on an equal footing with the language that's in the set syllabus, I think it really kind of makes sense. Yes, bird. That's the bird. So yeah, that's it. Instant gap fill for an activity. Doesn't have to be at the end of the lesson. I mean, you know, once you've done a speaking activity and your board is full, then we can gap it. See if they can remember. If you don't need your board for anything else, don't wipe it away just because. Wait for a bit, do another activity, then see if they can remember it again. If you don't need to clear your board at all, leave it for the next day so they can come in and you can test them the next day as well. I think it's important that we try to put, you know, the learning, the assimilation, the memorisation of words back into the classroom, rather than relegate them and expect them to be, you know, this remembering process to happen by magic in our learners' heads between lessons. That's not going to happen. We need to make sure that they walk out of the class and the words and sentences that we covered in English, or the language that we're teaching them, are going around their heads as they walk out, so they can't not remember. That, I think, is the ideal. So that, my friends, is the instant gap fill. If you've been doing it all this time, respect to you. If you haven't been doing it, well, there you go. And if you do it sometimes but forget, maybe it's time to revisit the technique. Strength and energy with your teaching.